What did I do in a week in Tanzania? Let me tell you, but first, intro. Hello wildlife watchers and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm Jeff. I'm a media producer originally from Montana who's obsessed with wildlife and ecotourism. I love nothing more than experiencing natural places, which is a huge theme you'll see in my work and on my content here. I love talking about my wildlife experiences, safaris and what have you, and this is the place where I channel all of that enthusiasm. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my 7-day Tanzania itinerary that I experienced last summer. This is part of a greater trip that included Kenya and Uganda. My sister and my brother-in-law traveled for 33 days to East Africa, which included all 3 of these countries. The majority of it was land travel, but for the sake of this video, I'm talking about my Tanzania experience specifically. Of these 33 days, we were only able to budget about 7 days in Tanzania. We wanted to pay a visit there, and I know that's on the shorter side, but in this video, I want to share with you what we did to give you a reference point and understanding of what you can see in 7 days there. And maybe you're already going to Kenya and want to tack on a little Tanzania visit, then this is perfect for you. This is exactly what we did. And maybe you're just going to Tanzania specifically and you're going to be going for much longer than a week. Well, maybe this is just your first week. Either way, it's going to be a reference point for you to help you plan for your dream Tanzania trip. So bottom line, we had 7 days, 1 week in this beautiful country, and it was the best week imaginable. Are you ready to jump into the itinerary? Let's do it. Let's start with day 1. On day 1, we woke up in the Masai Mara Game Reserve, which is in Kenya. From here, we crossed the border into Tanzania and made our way to Serengeti National Park. The Serengeti National Park, you've probably heard of it. This is a place you don't want to miss on your trip to Tanzania. I mean, how could you? It's one of the #1 places to see wildlife in the entire world. The Serengeti National Park is a large national park in northern Tanzania that spans over 12,000 square miles. This place is freaking huge, and it's going to take a long time for you to cover it all. If you want to see it and do a deep dive into this place, you're going to need at least a week. That unfortunately was just not the reality for us, so we had to do a little taste test version. The word Serengeti means endless plains, and trust me, when you go and visit the Serengeti, you will understand where the name comes from. You will see nothing but grass as far as the eye can see. Yet there is such a crazy amount of biodiversity in this ecosystem, and for this reason, it's one of the #1 natural destinations to experience in the world. It's part of the greater Serengeti region, which is defined by the area covered by the annual migration. So most of you watching this probably know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, I'm referring to the Great Wildebeest Migration that happens annually. This is a huge natural phenomenon and event that takes place every single year when millions and millions of wildebeest and zebra cross from the Serengeti into Masai Mara and then back again. Along this epic journey, these wildebeest must cross crocodile-infested waters and face the onslaught of predators waiting for them on the other side. It's a huge wildlife spectacle that people flock to see every single year. So the Serengeti is home to millions and millions of these migrating animals. There isn't an exact date where these animals start this journey, and it does take a long time for these herds to migrate, but typically the animals start to cross into the Masai Mara starting late June, early July, and they continue to cross into August, and then they don't return back to the Serengeti until about October. So it's in the Serengeti you're going to see most of the wildebeest and zebra populations starting from October up until June. So back to day 1, we started on the Kenya side and crossed the land border into Tanzania and then traveled all the way to the Serengeti National Park. This was a long and rather bumpy ride, but we eventually made it, and if you're curious, we stayed at the Kubu Kubu Lodge. I will say this is probably the nicest safari lodge I've ever stayed in. I will admit we definitely splurged on this place. We wanted to splurge on our East Africa trip at least once, and we chose to do it here, and we are so glad we did. The Kubu Kubu Lodge is perhaps the most lavish luxury safari experience I've ever had. Our private cabin had more beds than there were people sleeping in it, and there was also an outdoor shower. The food was phenomenal, and eating dinner and seeing lions and hyenas pass by was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So that's where we stayed in Tanzania. We spent 3 nights based here, and from there we would do numerous game drives into the Serengeti National Park. Now, because this place is so huge, we did not venture to all corners of the park. There's just no way you can do that in 3 days. So if you really want an extensive visit to this park, I would recommend staying at 2 to 3 different lodges in different areas of the park in order to really get a grasp for it. Or if you don't care that much, you can just stay in one place. You're gonna see plenty. There's wildlife in all of these spots. But if you're really, really keen, like I am, to go back and see everything that this place has to offer, this is how I would do it. We saw so much wildlife here. We saw lions, leopards, elephants, giraffes, zebras galore. We even saw the best lion cub sightings on this trip. The places we would see male lions on these Kopi rocks was straight out of a National Geographic film. This place is just simply spectacular. So we spent 3 nights there and traveled southeast to the Ngorongoro conservation area. This drive was a very long and bumpy one, but there was plenty of scenery to see along the way, and we did make numerous stops to see wildlife. So the Ngorongoro conservation area is where we will spend the next 2 nights. This is also a spectacular destination that you don't want to miss. This area would include the Ngorongoro crater. This crater is an extinct volcano that was thought to be formed over 2 million years ago. And there was a time in history when the explosion was so massive that the cone actually collapsed and created this giant crater. Today, it is a natural wonder that is filled with wildlife. There are over 30,000 animals living in this crater, 300 plus species. It's also a place where you're gonna have the best chance of seeing a wild black rhinoceros. There's an estimated about 20 to 30 left in this area, and I know that number seems really low, but considering how few there are left in the wild, this is actually a great probability that you'll see one. The hard reality is that black rhinos are critically endangered, and while there are plenty in the Serengeti, do you remember how big I told you the Serengeti is? So the crater is a much smaller area to cover, which increases your chances of seeing one. This is definitely one of the more fascinating locations I've ever been on safari. From the rim, there is a sweeping view of the entire crater. So it only takes less than a day to drive around the inside of the crater, but I would definitely recommend doing more than 1 game drive here, which is why you should spend 2 nights in this area. If you're curious, we stayed at the Rhino Lodge, and trust me, there are tons of rhino lodges all across Africa. So if you want me to be specific, I'm talking about the Ngorongoro Rhino Lodge. So you're not actually in the crater or on the rim at this hotel, you're just outside of it. But it's a very relaxing environment to put your head down at night. While we were there, this complex was invaded by Cape buffalo. In the morning when we got up for game drive, we were a little spooked when we saw a small herd of Cape buffalo in the courtyard. And I don't know if you realize how dangerous Cape buffalo are, but they are very dangerous. You don't want to startle them. But anyway, we made it out alive, and it's still a gorgeous place that you might want to consider spending your night. So from the Ngorongoro conservation area, we traveled to Arusha. I really enjoyed this drive in particular. There's a lot of really cool places to stop along the way, really cool restaurants. There are also other safari parks that you might want to consider adding to your itinerary. One prime example would be Lake Minyara, which is a really popular safari destination. I really regret not going, and it really hurt to drive past that sign and not go in. But for the sake of our timeline, we had to stick to this itinerary and couldn't spend any more time in Tanzania. And in Arusha, we spent our last night in Tanzania. This was just a landing pad to break up our drive all the way back to Kenya the next day. From Arusha, we drove all the way back to Kenya. This is where we then carried on to Amboseli National Park. I will say that our time in Tanzania was way too short. I would definitely spend way more than a week there next time. And in your case, I would recommend the same. Again, maybe you're just considering going into Tanzania as an add-on to your already existing Kenya plans, and that's cool too. But if you really want to do a thorough exploration of this country, definitely go to more places. I didn't even get to touch Zanzibar or Dar es Salaam in this itinerary, or all the beautiful game parks in the southern region as well. Arusha, in that case, we didn't get to spend much time in and explore. So the moral of the story is that I should really just relocate my life to East Africa because I cannot get enough of these places. But until that time comes, I'm so glad I got to experience it at all. I hope this video was helpful to you. I know it was a really brief video compared to my other itineraries, and it was a shorter trip, but I hope you can use that as a reference point when determining how much time you want to spend at these parks. And that's why I thought maybe this video would be helpful to you. If you want a recap of what I just covered, I have a written version here. This is the 7-day Tanzania itinerary that we experienced. Your trip might not exactly look like this, and that's okay. Just use this as a reference point when planning your dream safari. Most of you, if you're just going to Tanzania, will be flying into Arusha or Dar es Salaam and won't even have to cross the Kenyan border by vehicle. Thanks so much for watching my video today. I so appreciate everyone who continues to support my creative journey. I'm so hoping I can go on safari again this year. Please. I'm trying to come up with the funds. Let's hope. In the meantime, I enjoy making these videos reminiscing my past experiences there. If you found this video helpful and want to learn more about my eco experiences, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on my other social media platforms for updates. And if you have any other comments or questions, definitely don't hesitate in commenting below. I will do my best to answer them at the earliest. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jeff. See you next time.